Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about work-life balance. Is it possible? Is it achievable? So we're going to find out today. Life could be a little bit chaotic, so we're going to dive into the topic. I was supposed to have more people on this roundtable, but we got to do a good job still with the three of us. So please, I have two panelists with me today. Ladies first, please introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are, your full name, and what you do, and how long have you been doing it?
Yeah. So my name is Ivana Radojevic. I am the Director of Client Services at Stream Commerce. We are a Toronto-based Shopify Plus partner agency. So we do everything from site migrations and builds on Shopify Plus, all the way through to paid and email marketing, and then fulfillment and warehousing through our sister company, Think Logistics. And I have been in the e-commerce space for over 8 years now, all of it in an agency environment. So definitely have some opinions on work-life balance there.
All right, Richard.
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Richard Burgess. I work for a company called Everest Funeral Concierge. My role is a sales director. I really assist in the selling process of the product. The way we describe our product is we are a funeral concierge service that is rolled into a life insurance plan. So that is a mouthful, but the basics of what we do is we are a plan for when our clients pass away. We have licensed funeral directors that will work on behalf of our client's family to organize a funeral. And because we are provided through insurance products, we are a way to pay for the funeral as well. I have been in this role for 3 years now. I've been in financial services though for 9 years. And yeah, so my role is very unique. I don't work like a 9 to 5 kind of lifestyle. I set my own hours and I really do the work dictates by the demand really. So I do have some opinions on work-life balance, of course, as well. And I do bring a unique perspective. Sounds similar to Ivana as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. So how I'm going to start with Ivana. So how is it? How is it working for you, the work-life balance? Do you have it under control? How is it?
I would say within the agency space, it sort of comes in ebbs and flows. I'd be lying if I said that I always had perfect work-life balance. Q4, once we hit Black Friday, Cyber Monday, holidays, Boxing Week, all of that, it's pretty much nonstop go, go, go to get things done and get campaigns launched. But then there's other periods where I feel I have more of the work-life balance that makes me feel balanced, for lack of a better way of saying it. So yeah, I would say for me at least, it comes in ebbs and flows. It's not always absolutely perfect, but I strive to make it as balanced as possible in the grand scheme of things.
What about you, Richard? Are you maintaining? Are you on top of your game concerning work-life balance?
Yeah, I would say I am maintaining, and it is very similar to Ivana. It does kind of come and go for sure with the demand. Like right now in the summertime, it's a little bit more lenient. I have more control of my work-life balance, I would say. But yeah, come Q4, end of the year, there's a lot of events and a lot of things I have to really attend to. And it is something that I have learned to prioritize really with the role. Like with my role, I could fill my schedule completely with, of course, like that work component of my life. I am very comfortable with my work and my personal life being pretty synonymous, but I also learned to keep an eye on. I have to keep prioritize my personal life, prioritize booking time off, because otherwise my entire schedule will be filled with my work life. So I will answer that by saying it's something I've learned to do and prioritize more, and I'm getting a better handle on it for sure.
Do you think it's achievable work-life balance? Because I know in different industries it's probably like very a stretch. Like if someone is in a sports industry, an athlete and whatever, But what's your guys' perspective on that? Is it achievable? I'll start with Ivana.
I would say yes, it is achievable. A big part of that, I think, is making sure that you are setting boundaries so that you're not available all the time. Especially like for me, if I'm with my family, if I'm with my parents, if I'm with my husband, I want to be present in those moments, and I don't want to be like checking my phone and distracted and whatnot. But at the same time, they know when there's really busy times of the year within the industry that I work in, they have respect that I will have to put in some extra time, and that works for us. But I also find when you really enjoy what you do, and especially for a lot of like entrepreneurs that I work with within the Shopify space, they really love what they do. They're very passionate about what they do, and they understand that there will be periods where their work-life balance is not going to be perfect, but they're okay with that because there is a light at the end of the rainbow where you do have that as well. So I think you have to sort of look at your own boundaries as well and see if you're feeling, if you're feeling uninspired, if you're really tired all the time, if you're just sick, if you're not feeling well. I think at that point, you really have to look at, okay, do I need to take a little bit of a step back and reprioritize my personal life instead of work, even if I love what I do for work, to make sure that I can deliver when I am working and that I am inspired and I'm there and doing my best work.
Richard?
Yeah, I definitely think it is achievable. I'm always optimistic, glass half full, of course. So it has to be, in my mind, it has to be achievable. But it does depend on two things, right? So if we are talking about work from the employer standpoint, yeah, definitely you as the employee in this situation, you also have to be able to prioritize and set your own boundaries so that you are present in social situations. You are present in your personal life. You are setting those boundaries that work is not going to bleed too much into that personal life. But it also depends on your employer as well. Your employer has to respect that. They also have to kind of go along with those boundaries as well and support you. So I do think it's achievable, but it does depend on those two entities a lot, I would say. So.
And how many hours, like I'll go with Ivana, how many hours like do you work usually in a regular week, or is it up and down?
It's up and down. I mean, the target is 35, like a 7-hour day with an hour for lunch, so 8 hours. Doesn't happen every week. There are definitely weeks that are heavier on the hours than others. As I said, like going into Q4 for us, I expect that there will be more hours. It just kind of comes with the territory. But with my, with Stream Commerce, we have generous vacation policy and like personal flex day policies. You get your birthday off. My birthday happens to fall right around Black Friday, so I can't take exactly that day off, but I take off another day instead. So, I mean, I think, it's up to the employer as well to make sure that there is rest days, that you're encouraging your employees to take vacation, and that you do leave them alone when they are on vacation so that they can unplug and you can figure things out. They could figure things out on your own. Nothing's going to burn down while that person's away. So really just letting them unplug, I think, is very important too.
And what about you, Richard? How's the hours?
Yeah, so mine seems really similar to Ivana. Again, like I don't work like a set 9 to 5 rule. A lot of my working hours is in like evenings and weekends. Like to describe my role a bit more, I don't sell my product directly. Like I really do support agents who do sell our product. Like they describe me as like a wholesaler. So I like train agents to sell the product. I will support them in any questions they have or endeavors they have in selling it. And a lot of the time I am working with agents that they are doing their financial advising on like a part-time basis. So yeah, a lot of evenings and weekends, and a lot of it is like a come and go. And something what Ivana was describing there, what I took as well is it's a lot of compromise between my employer and of course myself, right? So if I do work a weekend, it is like a lenient kind of entity where I will take some time off during the week, or I'll justify taking time off later kind of thing. But it definitely is dictated by the demand. So when it is very busy, I will be working like most weekends and most evenings, but then there are periods of time like right now in the summer, which I really do appreciate, where I do have a lot of freedom. I do have a lot of time off. So it really is that give and take, and you have to do, it has to be kind of equal on both sides and understood for both sides as well.
And how do you manage like the time for friends, family, entertainment? How do you manage that? Because one person I had on a podcast, he was saying that every Friday he had reserved that day for his wife to go to a restaurant or to do something. How do you manage those like friendship and all that and the entertainment, Richard?
Oh yeah, so for sure, we're switching up a bit. I like that. So what I was thinking too, as well from the last question there. So how do I manage that? Yeah, like it really is kind of similar to things I've already have said. Can you just repeat the question there? It just threw me off there for some reason. Yeah, sorry.
No problem. I was saying that one person on a podcast that
right.
I had, he said that every Friday he reserved that for him and his wife to do something for a restaurant or something like that. Do you do something like similar with that, like with friends and family or entertainment?
Yeah, definitely. Like the way I would answer that question now, I remember what I was going to say is I've become like more scheduled than I ever have like in my entire life. And I don't just mean scheduled for like work related things. I actually schedule personal things as well. So if it's in my schedule, I like to say it is like set in stone. It's in there. So when something does come up that is really important to me on a personal level, I will put it in my schedule. Like I have my calendar. I really do follow it religiously. And traditionally, before I became so scheduled, I was almost like anti-schedule. I really like to be kind of like a perceiving personality type. I like to kind of go with the flow, but that just isn't the reality anymore, which is good and it is bad. But I've become used to it. I've become more scheduled person, scheduling even personal events as well. And I do base a lot of my life off of my partner's life as well. So she does work a more of a 9 to 5 typical role. I'm always kind of asking when she gets off work, like is her hours 11 to 7 this week, is her hours like a 9 to 5, and I will prioritize things like Fridays especially because yeah, like I said, I do work a lot of weekends, but usually that weekend consists of like just the Saturday. So yeah, Fridays are usually dedicated to her for like personal time with friends too.
Ivana?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Richard is saying, for me, weekends, I rarely work on weekends, like a Saturday, Sunday, maybe the odd time if there's something really, there's just a ton of work coming in the pipeline and things need to get done. But rarely Saturday, Sundays do I work. If I am putting in extra hours, it's usually Monday to Friday. So weekends very much for me are reserved for time with family. When I'm with my family, I'm present. I'm not checking Slack. I'm not looking at emails. As a matter of fact, I don't have Slack notifications going to my phone because my phone would absolutely break with notifications if I had my Slack notifications coming to my phone. So I don't have any like work related stuff coming to my phone for that reason, because I'd always be on. And then those constantly things are pinging. And I feel like I would always be in this like heightened state of stress because it would never stop. So yeah, I think having that time with family, when I'm there, I'm not thinking about work. I'm not answering calls. I'm not answering emails, and that takes some planning as well to make sure I have everything tied off on my Fridays. And then I don't expect any emergencies over the weekend. So,
yeah. So would you say you have a good quality of life?
Yes, I'm happy with my quality of life. I think I've worked very hard to get the quality of life that I have right now. Definitely hasn't been without sacrifices, and there's still some long days sometimes, and times when you kind of get frustrated and whatnot. I think that's just part and parcel of being human, and we have our ups and downs. But I think I'm very content with where I'm at.
What about you, Richard?
Yeah, I'd definitely say I would. And when I did first start in the role versus like now, like I was very comfortable with my work life being very synonymous with my personal life. And I did take that as a blessing in many ways. But then I started to become more aware of how it was actually affecting me or affecting those around me. And I have tried to kind of disconnect in certain areas. Like I remember a situation where like I was grocery shopping with my partner, and it is something like we actually do like to do. Like we have a fun time in the grocery store. And then I did take like a work call, and I could tell that she was annoyed, and I almost kind of took the opportunity to say like, well, this is like the reality of my role. Like I could be reached at any time. And yeah, she understood and respected it. But then I kind of like went the opposite way from that situation, right? Like I kind of thought that, yeah, was taking that call actually the right thing to do? Like when we are doing this thing that we enjoy to do together. And yeah, it's like a task. It's like it's a chore to many people, but we like to kind of goof around in there and actually do have a good time. And when I am with her or with family members, I will look to disconnect more, like even leave my work phone at home and understand and know that it can wait. Like I used to have the mentality that I have to take that call anyway. At some point, that task is not going away. So why not just do it? But there is a time and place where I shouldn't just be answering the phone or answering texts at all times. So, but to answer the question, yeah, definitely, I think I do have a great quality of life with that freedom that I have, where I don't have like a set 9 to 5 work style. I don't have a set amount of hours like I have to work. I do have to work, of course, but it is like a lot of give and take. So, like I mentioned, I work in evenings and weekends. That sounds like it's not the best thing to many of my friends, but it is like give and take mentality, where in most mornings, like I get to go to the gym like every single morning, or I can make time for the gym whenever I want to, which is really important to me, or like meal prep, things like that. So it is definitely give and take kind of thing, but I think I do have a good handle on it right now. I would say I do have a good, happy and healthy lifestyle with my work.
Mm. You were saying at the beginning before we pressed the record button that you were traveling a lot.
Yeah.
How does someone, let's say, who's in that situation and has a hard time balancing like work-life balance, what would you have to say to them?
Yeah, so it's something that I sort of realized too is like you're talking about those hours that you spend like technically working, and with my role, I do spend a lot of time traveling, whether it is like driving from like the GTA all the way to Ottawa sometimes, or I will spend time like in airports when I fly like out to the Maritimes. Like my territory is like Ontario all the way to the Maritime provinces. And my advice I found for myself too is like you have to consider all those time as hours. Like even if it doesn't feel like work, like you're just commuting or you're just spending time in airports, that is still time that you are there on like the company's time, right? That you do have to consider. I do enjoy the travel part of my role. Like I do appreciate the places I do go. I always like to try and prioritize taking time off, so to speak, while I am in those places too. And it's not just there for strictly work. Like I like to try to prioritize actually getting into the communities I visit, or going on hikes, or like exploring the scenery, nature, the people of those places. So that would be my best advice. Like don't take it as like a chore. I see other people in my role who do travel to very desirable locations, but they really choose this point of suffering rather than appreciating like the gift that they are given as well, right? Like maybe it's not the role for them if you're not appreciating the places that you go as well, and taking the time to appreciate both the work and of course the pleasure aspects of where you go. My only struggle really with working so many times like abroad or away from home is the fact that I do miss the people that are closest to me, right? Like I do miss spending time with like my girlfriend when I am away at weeks at a time. But my advice to people who do travel a lot is try to appreciate it, try to understand if it is for you or not, because it really might not be. So that's one of my best advice, I would say.
What would be your advice, Ivana, on someone who has a hard time with making work-life balance work for them?
I mean, I think if you're having a really hard time, you have to take a close look at the job and see, okay, is this right for me? If your work is really important to you, and you maybe more important than your family, I don't know. I'm sure to some people that could be the case. Maybe they just don't like their family. I don't know. But, I think if you're missing really important times with your family, if you're starting to hear, your partner, your kids, whoever telling you you're never there, you're missing games, you're missing important events, you're missing birthdays, all of this stuff, at some point you do have to look in the mirror and ask yourself if that job is still the right fit for you. And it might not be. And I think that's totally okay. Like, as people, we evolve, we grow, we build families, we have kids, we have grandkids maybe, or whatever the case may be, and your priorities change. And I think it's an always evolving thing. And just because something works right now doesn't mean it'll work 5 or 10 years from now. And I think it's okay to change that.
Richard?
Yeah, I definitely would see it's something you have to look into, like, internally, but also externally in multiple different ways, right? Like, you have to ask yourself as the employee, like, is this something that I am enjoying? Is this something that is truly for me? But you could also look to your employer as well. Like, if you are finding that it's not working, you could ask them to make kind of compromises, ask them to adjust the role a little bit, or maybe you need to hire someone new. But it is really checking in both with yourself and your employer is the way I would answer that question, but also those around you. Like, I always ask my girlfriend or tell her, like, if the travel is ever coming too much, like, let me know. But of course, I feel like I'm a pretty intuitive person. I can tell kind of when I am traveling too much or when I shouldn't schedule like a work trip.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just continue where we left off there. Like, if I had any advice for someone who found they weren't maintaining that work-life balance, it would definitely be to look at internal and external sources, right? Like, meaning, I guess, well, just internally, like asking yourself, because it's not just not working for me. Is there something I can do to fix this situation? Do I have control over it? Like, can I disconnect more properly? Can I put up more boundaries where my employer is actually giving me the opportunity to put up more boundaries? But it also might be that you have to meet with your employer and ask for those boundaries and ask for support and assistance in the role. But if the employer is not going to be giving that, then you might have to look into the reality of finding a new job, a new career, because it's not working for you or you're not getting the support from your employer. But all the times it is usually, like, from my experience anyway, it's the individual kind of not putting up a big of a fight for themselves, right? Like, I did find that when maybe I first started in the role, I was just saying yes to everything and filling my own schedule. Like, my employer is very supportive of work-life balance and that I should be scheduling time off for myself. And it just became a reality that I actually had to take them up on that and set my own boundaries. So it would be really unfortunate, of course, if the employer was not supporting you in that. Then you probably want to get out of that situation, or I guess maybe report them to the labor board, but that's a case by case situation, of course. But a lot of the time, and the best way to answer the question, I would say, is to look internally and see if you are actually taking control of the situation, and if you can put up more boundaries or barriers to get you back on track to better work-life balance. And hopefully that's the solution and not the other one.
And just to add on to what Richard's saying, so within the e-commerce space, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners. And what I see a lot is, like, or at least what I've learned, is that you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I don't think that you can necessarily always expect that your employees are going to work as hard as you do on your own business, because the fact of the matter is that for some of them, it is just a job, and they're coming in, they're looking to clock in their 7 hours, put in their work, and that's it. They don't want to work evenings. They don't want to work weekends. They're not going to be thinking about your business the way you think about your own business. And a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've worked with, they've realized that, and they know that, and they don't expect their team to be as invested in their business as they are in their own, right? So I think that's also important to keep in mind, that, it's not just because somebody doesn't want to be working on your business X amount, like, overtime and weekends and evenings and whatnot, doesn't make them a bad employee. As long as they're delivering within the 7 hour, 8 hour window, whatever they have, they're showing up, they're doing their work. But it's rare that you're going to find somebody who's as invested in your own business as you are.
Yeah. And just with that came to my mind, like, one of the best piece of advice I got about my role and understanding my role from someone who was mentoring me was you almost have to treat my role as if I was a business owner. And that was like one of the best pieces of advice until I got an arguably better piece of advice from someone else that said, yeah, that's all well and good. Like you can treat your role as your business owner, setting your own hours, putting in that time and effort. But you also have to keep in mind that at the end of the day, you're actually not owning the business. You are still an employee, and yeah, you got to respect your own time and kind of put that out as well. So yeah, Ivana and I were talking offline, and she was getting a more understanding of my role, and I don't I don't sell the product directly. Like I support financial advisors. I meet with financial advisors and basically show them that they could provide my product to their clients, or I convince them that they should be providing my product to their clients. But I think it was interesting, and that really did come to mind, that piece of advice I got, that treat your role as if you're a business owner. But the better advice that I kept in mind now that I'm more seasoned in my career is also keep in mind you don't own the business. You are still an employee, and you shouldn't be working yourself to obscene amounts of time or to death, so to speak, kind of thing for the company as well.
I'm gonna go on a last question. Now we have the people are working remotely. They have the option now to work remotely. Maybe that doesn't affect you too much, Richard. But Ivana, is that something that you do? Like, do you work like physically or remotely, or do you have the option?
My role is fully remote. It's 100% remote. We're headquartered in Toronto, but we have employees all across the GTA area, in the US, Western Canada, as well as the UK, India, and India. So we're a very distributed team. We work across multiple time zones. If anything, that is a very challenging thing when you work remotely, is if you've ever tried to schedule a meeting across multiple time zones, it's let me tell you, that can be a frustrating experience, but it's part of remote work. And so I used to be in an office full time. Like I was always working in an office. And then when COVID hit, we switched to remote pretty instantaneously from more or less one day to the next. That was with my previous agency. And when I joined Stream Commerce, they were already fully remote. So no physical office. We have flexible work hours. We do have core hours where you do need to be available during Eastern time. But other than that, if you do your best work in the evening, work in the evening. If you want to get up at 5 a.m., that's when you do your best work, get up at 5 a.m. So that's been really good for me because I like the flexibility. The only challenge that I find sometimes with being fully remote is that it definitely can get lonely. Sometimes like there's been days where an entire week would pass, and by Thursday, I'd realize like, oh my goodness, I have not left my house in 4 days. Like that's crazy. So I kind of have to like make an effort to like maybe go work from a coffee shop sometimes, or just like switch up the location a little bit so I don't feel so like on my own little island. But I would say the pros outweigh the cons for me, definitely.
Okay. What about you, Richard? Well, it's you're physical and you're remote at the same time. So would you say that helps a lot with the work-life balance?
Yeah, so like we don't have any set office here in Canada either. Like we are really like a new way of thinking about funeral and estate planning. Like really, our promise is that we will respond anywhere in the world and make funeral arrangements anywhere in the world. But my role in selling the product is, assisting those to sell the product, right? So I have no set office here in Canada. Our head office is in Houston, Texas. So I've only actually visited twice in my entire life. It's all work from home technically, but a lot of the time I am like on the road visiting like financial advisors at their space, like at their office spaces. So it is a bit of a different role to understand that reality, but sometimes I do think of my old role, like my old job I had, like working in an office environment, and kind of similar to what Ivana was saying, like I do miss that at times, like having that like a coworker relationship bonding and a friendship as well, right? Like it's good to have relationships like that in the workplace, but it was also good as well to for the actual work part of things as well, right? To have people there that you can kind of bounce ideas off of. But I would agree with Ivana that the pros do outweigh the cons of working from home. Like I see it with my girlfriend, like since COVID, they of course were working from home like full time, and now they're trying to pull them back into the office. And with us not like living downtown Toronto anymore, she actually has to take like the GO train into Toronto, and it is just like a big hassle. And she kind of describes it as when she goes into the office, she feels like she gets nothing done because either people are more likely to ask her questions in her role as like a supervisor or manager, or people are just more likely to come by and have those like friendly chats, those friendly interactions, and which are good things, but she also feels like she never gets any actual work done when she does go to the office, and the time spent commuting is just super frustrating, right? Like it's great to work from home and be able to like cook a meal or do laundry at the same time as you're working, and as long as it doesn't affect your actual work, of course, it is a positive thing, and what we are moving into, which is more work from home, work remote.
Last words in regards to everything we've talked about. I'll start with Ivana.
Yeah, I think it's just important to do check-ins with yourself and to see where your work-life balance is at. And I think it is normal that sometimes it will be skewed towards work, sometimes it will be skewed towards, family and the balance part of it. In the grand scheme of things, though, like if you look at it kind of from a broad perspective, if you are just in a constant state of stress and work, and it's all you think about, it's cutting into your family time, your family's starting to tell you that you're a workaholic, you're never around. I think those are some really key flags to reevaluate where you are, and it might be time for a change. And I think that's totally okay. So we grow as people, our circumstances change. It's okay to pivot. So just do those check-ins with yourself, because if you get to the point where you burn out, you're not going to be good for your employer. You're definitely not going to be good for your family at that point, and it's really bad for your overall health, and just mentally and physically as well. So check in with yourself and pivot when needed.
Richard?
Yeah, like I would completely agree with what Ivana was saying, and I don't want to just completely echo what she was saying there for how she views our own individual level and individual level living in Canada. So I completely agree with her sentiments there, but I kind of want to take it as the last words is just to kind of think about how work life and work in general is not the same everywhere, right? Like look at lessons like around the world. Like we have this idea always known that like maybe European countries, they have more time off, they do have more vacation time, and we're kind of maybe here in North America fighting for more time like that. I know France just recently, I just recently learned they have a law basically now that if you are an employee of a company that's large enough, like I think it's like over 50 employees, that your employer actually cannot contact you in any way while you are off, like even like on your weekend or vacation. So just kind of thinking about on our own societal level that, yeah, we do have it pretty good in comparison maybe to our neighbors in the States, that we do have the blessing of having like maternity leave and paternity leave that is proper, but it could always be better, so to speak, if we want to have more time off or more respect for that time off, and how important it actually is to disengage from work when you are off, and maybe having more laws, or we push for laws similar to those in France, where your employer can't contact you when you are technically off, because some people, they can't handle that. They can't set those boundaries for themselves, but that doesn't mean that maybe that's right? Like if someone is becoming like a workaholic and they are getting that feedback from their family, but then they want to take that feedback from their family and stop being a workaholic, but they just can't turn that off. Maybe it is up to society and laws to be put in place on the employers to kind of set those boundaries. So my final words, we to kind of think about that we are still always fighting for work-life balance, maybe the 4-day work week and things like that. And is it good or is it bad? We'll see.
All right. Thanks you guys for joining this roundtable. Like I said, it was supposed to be 4 people, but we ended up being 2. Well, plus me 3. But they did a good job, and I hope people found value in the topic and what they're saying. I think there was a lot of good nuggets, a lot of good insights, and I like their perspective on the topic. So thank you, Richard, for being here, and thank you, Ivana, for being here. It was nice seeing you guys again because it's been a while. We had the podcast, I think, in 2021. So it's 2023. So it's nice seeing you guys again.
Mhm.
On that note, thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to the podcast. Welcome to A Better Lifestyle. My name is Richard.lesperance, and I go by the name of my man Richard. And wherever you are, you're listening the podcast, wherever you're listening or you're watching the podcast, either it's a video or audio, make sure to follow and subscribe and to leave a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It would mean a lot because it helps people find the podcast. So, on that note, again, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Ivana.
Thank you.
No
Thanks for having
problem.
me.
No problem.